Okay, hello, my fellow researchers. Um, Here we are where I am Sunday morning. For a lot of you, it's Sunday afternoon on March 22nd. And we meaning Cosmobiology Institute, as you know, but just to confirm for everybody, we now have just changed to having two meetings a month, one on Sunday morning, my time on the East Coast of the USA, and then again tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. That way we can accommodate the whole world pretty well, which is our goal. The goal of Cosmobiology Institute is to promote, expand, inspire evidence-based astrology. And that basically means ways to critically evaluate whether the rules actually work or how they work, what works, in what way. This is an issue that psychology has faced for a long time in other fields. And so there's a lot of work done in how to assess things, assess whether things are true. Um, and, goes on forever. So here we are. And we did not receive any questions beforehand, but I have two in the chat. And I have a topic I can talk about if we exhaust all of that. And also at the end of today's meeting, Angela is going to come on soon, and she's going to tell us a little bit about this GoKollab website that's been set up, a way for us to share ideas. And we're going to also have another thing on our website. There's two things. Let me announce this a little bit before we get rolling with the actual astrology. Um, we're going to put on our website at cosmobiology.org, it's also called cosmobiologyinstitute.org, a place for all of you to say what your interest is in astrology research or evidence-based astrology. We don't want so much a biography. We want to know, like you could say, um, I'm a practicing therapist. I'm very much interested in evidence-based astrology for mental and emotional disorders, things like that. I have a master's degree. I'm a practicing marriage and family therapist. What your engagement and involvement with research is. It might be several things. So we can get to know each other, right? And we can collaborate and build a global network. So we're going to have a place on the website for everybody to introduce the part of you that's connected to evidence-based astrology. In addition to that, Angela has set up an online forum. She used GoKollab, there's tons of them, just to share ideas, organize, kind of like similar to a Facebook thing, but organized in topics. So I wanted to announce those two developments. Okay, I've got two questions. One is, since I use harmonics under the style of vibrational astrology, I have a question here from Ronald. How you find to analyze, interpret prime harmonics? Okay, so this gets into research methods. Let me share my screen just so we can have a place to throw up some notes. Okay, and let me just, I think it's nice to have it a visual as well as my words. So I'm just going to put into this word processing document a few notes um, as I'm talking. How to determine what the fifth harmonic means? This is the kind of question we have. How do we figure this out? What have research methodologists come up with? What ways can we pursue it? And one of the things that's interesting is there's a lot of creativity. There's not like, oh, this is how you do it. It's open. There's many kinds of qualitative research, quantitative research. But let's say you think that quintiles, 72 degrees, or biquintiles, 144 degrees, might have some relevance to human personality or behavior. How do we figure it out? Not the way astrologers do, by just talking about whatever chart they ran into and feels good to them and what their teacher told them and what they've read in a book, but how can we really critically assess it? And we can all join in with ideas. So let's review a few of the ideas and then I'll tell you what I do. I'm just going to make this quick because most of us are familiar with all these ideas. But let's just think about it. One is literature review. This is a standard thing they teach in college, and I think it's true. See what people are saying. What did John Addy say? What did David Hamblin say? What did Santino Mancuso say? People who've worked, what does Rick Levine say? Do a literature review. Now, in addition to things like Google search, we have the large language models, which are like, among other things, are like search engines on steroids. I mean, they'll just go out and find all kinds of stuff. So, this large language model stuff, ChatGPT, a lot of people have a particular image of it. It's got a lot of different things you can do. And one is search on steroids, and it'll just find all this stuff, um, etc. Okay, so you have literature review. Now, too, you go on through the literature, you get some ideas. I'll tell you what I do in a case like this, and you guys can share your ideas on research methods. As you know, my academic training is in research methods. That's what my master's degree is in. So I love research methods. To me, it's an epistemological issue, a philosophical issue. How do you know something? And I think it's fascinating. And, people have come up with all kinds of clever ways. But one thing is, do you want to uh, build a model? This is my personal point of view. Build a model or test a model? That's the first question. And it's a spectrum. I put it here as a binary thing. But how much are you doing it? You can put it this way also. To what extent do you want to be exploratory or confirmatory? This is like the big question. And like I said, it's a spectrum. If you're very confident or very interested or very turned on by a certain interpretation of it, it could be from your personal experience. There's nothing wrong with anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal evidence is where things start. Maybe you've done a few charts, it's really clicked for you. Maybe it was just your own. The reason why we research methodologists are critical of it is because it's a starting point, not an ending point. It, as Richard Feynman said in physics, you guess and then you test your guess. So you can do confirmatory or exploratory or where you are on the spectrum. I tend to be skeptical. That's just my temperament. So I incline towards exploratory. But here's the thing, there's no one way, and your instincts, your intuition are critical. Research is not about turning yourself into a robot or a computer. You use your whole brain. Like, what do you think? What do you feel? You develop the question, you develop the attitude, and then you follow rules on it. For me personally, so that, I tend to be exploratory. Again, there's a lot of personal intuition involved in deciding how you're going to do it. Since I tend to be exploratory, I don't trust my anecdotal evidence. I don't trust John Addy. I don't trust anybody. I want to explore. So I'm more inclined to knowledge discovery, um, things like that. And so one of the things I like to do, and this is what I've gotten known for, but it's only a starting point for me, is extreme case sampling. And extreme case sampling, like any kind of research method, has all research methods have assumptions. They work only under certain conditions. Um, and one of the assumptions of this method is that the outliers are qualitatively similar to the rest of the data. That's a huge assumption. You only use extreme case sampling when you feel that this is relatively true. Does not 100%, but tends to be true. For example, if I want to understand how to get wealthy, and I study that 1/10 of 1% of wealthy people, can I apply those ideas to normal, average, wealthy people? Um, Maybe, maybe not. They may be qualitatively different. Can I take the greatest basketball players and apply that to normal people? Maybe not. I'm 5'7". That kind of rules me out right away. Um, I'm older, so it may not be relevant. So things can be different. Um, there's research that shows that people who are above average income have less stress. People who are extremely wealthy often have more stress. So things are not always a normal curve. They can be what we call bimodal. Stress can be high when you're low income. It can be high when you're extremely high income. And in the middle, lower is what some data shows. Because those people with high income who are actively making that money are often extremely busy and with a lot of demands. So the extreme case sampling tends to work when things are the same. So here's my question. If someone has sun, moon, and ascendant in any sign, Leo, do you think the Leo, do you think that it is just a lot of Leo, or does the Leo change by having so much of it? These are questions that we don't even usually articulate to ourselves, but in research methods, we take a lot of things that are intuitive or unconscious and we state them, we bring them to the conscious awareness. So I've presented my research on people who have, out of 20,000 charts, who has the most Gemini. Um, and I find things that don't completely make sense, like for Gemini, it was, I can't remember her name, tennis player, retired tennis player. Um, and she was very quiet, reserved personality. And she's triple Gemini, plus the ruler of Gemini, Mercury, is in Gemini. She doesn't fit a lot of the Gemini qualities. So where is her Gemini? And then people say, well, most of the planets are in the 12th house, that mutes it, or an extreme Leo person had Saturn square the Leo. So you set up rules. Now here's the fun part. Once you set a rule and you say that, if anybody remembers her name, you can put it in the chat. She's Steffi, yeah, Steffi Graf. Thank you, Sravya. Um, so Steffi Graf is like insane Gemini. So what we do with extreme case sampling is, here's the idea. The idea is if your idea does not work, like if I say Gemini is a chatterbox, blah, 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 they're curious, da, 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 and then I look at Steffi and she was famous for being just the opposite, um, I have a problem. Now, if she is a chatterbox and everything that Gemini is supposed to be, um, that is not very convincing, but it means that my idea is uh, tenable. It's possible. But if it does not work, you have problems. You have big problems. We have a big problem. Steffi Graf is not Gemini. Either Gemini changes when you have a lot of it, or something is able to destroy it. And they have this idea in Vedic astrology, Nietzsche Bala, or just Nietzsche in general, that one thing in the chart can destroy the power of something else. But now we have a focused, real problem because it's not dependent on selection bias. It's based on the idea that if you have a lot of Gemini, then you should be, um, you should have some qualities. Now, this is, of that sign. Now, this is qualitative research just to get started, to explore. A lot of people think, well, you didn't prove anything. Oh my God. that's one, we don't use the word proof, by the way, but that's just one way of doing research. I want to see if, excuse me, Gemini makes any sense. And I have no selection bias. Here's my triple Gemini. Does the 12th house overpower it? Can people revert to the opposite condition? Can Gemini manifest in a lot of ways? A lot of people said, well, she plays tennis. That's a Gemini activity. I looked at tennis players, they have no emphasis on Gemini. So that's possible, but now you have clear consequences for your statement because we have a clear data to work from. And by the way, they used extreme case sampling to figure out what genes incline people to things like obesity. So this is used at the highest level of technical research. It's not some flaky thing. I've corresponded with the people who did that research, and they gave me some pointers, and they said, this is brilliant, do it. And they don't care that it's astrology. I just told them,
Can I butt in a little
yes,
bit there?
please. Bernard, yeah,
Okay,
let
so
me stop here and let's get some ideas. Bernard, yeah.
right. So, I mean, this distinction of exploratory and confirmatory, it fascinates me because one of the things that has lured me into trying to see a more cosmological perspective on happenings is to be radically exploratory. And ja, men prata med mamma. Sorry, that was my son. But what I'm thinking is that even with extreme case sampling, one is looking at some sort of confirmation of what has accumulated in one or the other astrological tradition, right? And I mean, this what you're presenting now is confirmatory um, of a Western tradition, right? And you mentioned the Vedic, and if we look at this chart immediately, she's not an extreme Gemini anymore. She actually has the moon and the sun in Taurus, right?
Yes,
Yeah. So we see this divergence, uh, and then so that's one problem that I see
yes,
with the distinction when trying to distinct between exploratory and confirmatory. But where I really want to go from reading what you were going to talk about today, and I could have typed this, sorry, but I thought I might as well take it verbally also, is that uh, to some extent, what fascinates me the most with trying to find cosmological explanations is that we have to look at different traits and consider if are the categories from which we are viewing these traits are not at the very outset confirmatory from a biological sense. And that's the reason why I started to when you talk about extreme case sampling in biology, I'm like, okay, but we are biologically prone to see occurrences in certain categories because survival is what we are designed for, right? Or designed for is too anthropological. Sorry, what we are selected for would be better.
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And I just want to confirm that I agree with you. Extreme case sampling is not completely exploratory. I'm just going to summarize, rephrase some ideas here, is that extreme case sampling is not completely exploratory. We're starting with a Western tradition that Gemini would tend to mean certain things. Um, so it's somewhere on that spectrum between exploratory and confirmatory. And furthermore, we always have built-in categories, built-in ways of thinking upon which anything we observe is based. So nothing is really probably completely exploratory. But that's a very, very good point. And one of the ideas of extreme case sampling is to see if your assumptions, your beliefs are viable. So the idea that having a huge amount of Gemini is going to incline your personality to be very talkative, um, and kind of light and bubbly is wrong. How do you like that? In other words, we came up with a conclusion. Now you may say, well, I knew that was wrong. Okay, well now what you knew is confirmed by data, not just by your personal wisdom. And now we can figure out why it's wrong. Maybe the sidereal needs to be taken into account. Maybe 12th house using a quadrant house system. We come up with an idea, and now what's exciting is now you have a rule that you must apply to the next chart and the next chart, so we can see who's the second strongest Gemini. And once we set that rule, we're stuck with it. Unlike what we do now, which in astrology is we just pick whatever rule happens to work with whatever chart. And we basically don't have any solid system because we keep picking different rules. This person's because of Saturn, this is 12th house. Oh, I also use whole sign houses. Oh, I also use this. And you have a grab bag. So it starts to build some structure. So yeah, very good points, Bernard. I totally agree. And you might want to use, and other people might want to use a more radically exploratory system. I personally like to start with some kind of theoretical framework and build from there. I think you almost have to, but I like to test some ideas, and I've settled on this vibrational astrology framework for astrology because it seems to hold up in my experience. Bernard, do you want to say anything else? Did I twist anything you're saying too badly?
No, no, it's fine. I mean, the only thing that I could add, I think I will have opportunity to add a little bit later. So, thanks to you for your first reply there.
Okay, wonderful. Excellent. Okay, so the question of how would you, for example, figure out what something means, like quintiles by quintiles? One of my go-to things is just to do an extreme case sampling to see what ideas are viable. Once I find out what's viable, like I'm not finding the usual meaning of Gemini to be, it's not viable. I've got to come up with, and I did, I came up with my idea of why she doesn't fit Gemini. And then I applied that to other charts and it seems to hold up. It's qualitative. There's no rock solid conclusion, but it starts to sort out things that we can take to the next level. And one of the things I like to do is look at transits activating something, like if it's a quintile, uh, like let's go ahead and put quintiles in Steffi's chart. So if I go to aspects in this particular software, and I'll put in, so she's got quintiles of Saturn, Uranus. Does that mean anything? And Venus, Uranus, depending on what orbs we use. So again, I would do extreme case sampling, find the people that have most quintiles, see what seems to be consistent. Then I look at transits. When planets transit or progress, or whatever method you want to use, the quintiles, like a planet comes in between and quintiles this, there should be some kind of behavior that activates it. And then I will make a data visualization. That's something I had in mind to show you to see if my theory works well. So this gives me another way to confirm, because a personality over a lifetime is one thing. When it gets activated, does that part of the person come to the forefront? That's another thing that I do. Another thing that I learned from the geneticists is to have a control group of people who have zero score or the lowest score on whatever I'm evaluating, and use them as a control group. So I can use the people who have no Gemini and see if they do do not have the qualities. Again, it's qualitative, subjective, but there's no selection bias. Then from there, I often like to do a logistic regression is one of the tools I like to use, where if I can categorize people into say two groups, um, high Gemini, low Gemini, then see if I can create a formula that has good probability values and good effect sizes. So in my research on logistic regression, I look for a p-value less than 0.001. I'll tell you my criteria. These are criteria used in data mining, adapted to astrology, but the principle is the same. Let me put it in the notes here. Is after extreme case sampling, I often do logistic regression if it fits the situation. And I have two rules for this is to discriminate two groups, such as high Gemini and no Gemini. And I create a formula. And I can say Sun in Gemini gets 5 points, blah, blah. If it's in the 12th house, minus 5 points, that hurts it. Create a formula and see if that formula distinguishes the two groups of people. And then what I have, the two criteria is for a good formula, two criteria for a good formula are one, I call it astrosignature, means the combination of things. The formula is internally consistent and theoretically reasonable. By internally consistent, I mean if I have something that says you have strong Gemini if planets are in the 12th house, but I also think the 8th house is a problem, but I don't include it, or I include it only with coke houses because it's the only one that works and I don't really have a reason for it. Is it a consistent, am I using the same orbs for similar types aspects, or does it look arbitrary and theoretically inconsistent? And the other thing is I want a p-value less than 0.001, 1 in 1,000, because I'm still exploratory, and p less than 0.05 is used for confirmatory research. We have basically a multiple theory problem. So this is how I proceed. It's not very often, and there's other tricks that I use, you might say, other techniques, research methods. But to answer the question, this is an approach that I often use. If anybody wants to share approaches that they like, if you wanted to figure out what quintiles and biquintiles mean using an evidence-based procedure, you can unmute or I'll look at the chat. And anybody have any other ideas about this?
Santina, this is Sravya.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've run into while doing the exploratory research was when I took an extreme case sampling, I got down into the weeds so much so that I forgot the big picture. Maybe I'm sharing this hoping that it might help our fellow researchers here. I can share my code real quick if that helps. Or if I can take this screen, if that's all right.
Okay, if you want to share your screen, I'll stop sharing, and I gave you the ability to share your screen.
Okay.
So you tried, just to summarize what you're saying, make sure we all understand this, you've tried the extreme case sampling, you've used your own code to do it,
Right.
and you got stuck in the weeds and the little details and couldn't see the big picture and you got lost in there. So this is brilliant, and this is why we like to have a lot of people get together. Let's see if we can brainstorm our way through this.
So let me share my screen real quick. So I've taken a couple of, so I was looking for, so a quick background. So I was looking for a epilepsy patient's history, trying to look if there are certain planets that are triggering her episodes, if that's a lifelong thing or if it's just something that she's going to grow out of, right? I've taken some extreme case sampling of the data available online, and I tried a lot of things, but I realized I was getting too down into the weeds. And the signature, the planetary signature, is really very subjective to the person. So then I kind of took a step back and started putting together a few things by myself to see if we can match at least 70% of the signatures, to say with at least a little bit of confidence saying, okay, this could be a possibility. Nobody can give 100% certainty, right? So that's when I started putting the code together. When we were talking about Steffi here, I quickly input her data in here. And this is what my code does. And the reason behind putting it all together is I wanted to know the traits instead of me going into the top buzzing harmonics, are the quintiles more buzzing, or the oppositions more buzzing, or down the road maybe a couple of other down the road very higher harmonics are buzzing more. I just wanted to see which one's the highest buzzing harmonic. So initially I only stuck with the first 12. So here my code quickly tells me that the quintiles are the most buzzing, and the squares next for her. And I wanted to see what her traits are as well. I was doing the same thing, so I can quickly note down in a table all my sampling information and see if there is a common signature between all my samples, right? Here, where was the word cloud? I was trying to look at. Here's the bird cloud, or here is Steffi Graf's traits. These are some of the keywords that I pulled from Reddit. Some of them are generated from AI. So I've created a set of words given the combination of planets in certain houses and certain signs. So Sun in Leo in 5th house gives me a certain set of words combination. So these are her strengths. She's methodical, practical, adaptable, and to one of the things, she's her stress-causing harm, emotions or nervous. That's probably why, even though she's Gemini, she's a little bit reserved, right? Sometimes she could be indecisive, but overall, this is what I was trying to see, and I'm happy to share the code. I'm just happy to put it in a place where everybody could use. But this is something that has helped me quickly step back and look at the big picture across all the samples I have and say, okay, certain planetary combinations can 70% of the time cause, the hype or whatever we're checking for, right? Whatever the hypothesis we're looking for. So that was one of the challenges I faced. So I thought I would share with the team and see if anything helps. That I'm happy to share the code with the team.
Wow. Wow, that's really exciting, very impressive. I have a few comments. One is, I think we, Cosmobiology Institute, needs to put on our website a library of code and resources. So I'm going to advise this afternoon, I'm going to email the board and say, this is another thing we need to do ASAP so people can access all this stuff. That's just a preliminary comment. Let me make sure we all understand what you're doing. You're looking at, what is the trait you're looking at? And are you looking at predictive methods or natal methods? I didn't quite follow. And how many people have you studied so far?
For the epilepsy study, I think I've studied 22 people, but the signatures of the planets were all over the place. I really got down into the weeds, and I was trying to look at all the combinations of harmonics per person, trying to see which one buzzed the highest in a given person's natal chart, but nothing made any sense. Then I took a step back and I realized I've got to have a table for all the 22 samples saying which signatures buzzed a lot. So that way I can step back and look at the final output and say, okay, you know what, 20% of the time, maybe Mars Uranus combination. When a transit Mars hits her natal Uranus, then maybe there's a high chance of her getting an episode. Stuff
Right.
like
So let me just confirm, you have 22 cases of epilepsy,
mhm.
and do they all have a birth time from a birth record?
Yes, some of them not very clean. Some of them were clean, but I took what I could because there was not much of data available out there for when they had the epilepsy throughout or the episodes throughout the life. They were diagnosed with epilepsy, but not all epilepsy diagnoses have episodes down the road. So that was one of the challenges I had too.
Okay, so let me just confirm, you do have a birth time for all of them, so we're not restricted in that way. And number two, you have episodes for some of them. You have 22 natal. What's about the total number of episodes? I know some people may have a lot and some people none, but just how many episodes do you have? I mean,
Um,
that are within, a few days or so.
So my subject that I was trying to correlate to had 10 episodes, and 3 out of 10 episodes were in one single day. So I was trying to look for that signature or that buzz in other samples, but not all the samples had the correct or reliable episode history. So that was one of the challenges too.
So 10 episodes on average per person or total?
Or average per person.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is fantastic data. So, in doing research, it's good to go slowly. You see how I'm going very slowly? I'm not answering her question yet. We've got, just my own personal opinion, got to go slowly. What are we talking about? 22 people with birth times and some episodes for most of them. Wow, what a fabulous database. And this is exactly what I love that I just talked about. We build it for the natal chart and then we see if it gets activated at the episode. So this is fabulous. 22 is enough for exploratory research. If you're doing, heavy statistical research, they say, blah, blah, blah. We're not doing that. We're trying to this is very exploratory. Find something that fits. Now, you've gotten lost in the weeds in that there's so many things to look at. And so you organized it into a table so you can say, okay, 40% have this, 30% have this, etc. And then one of the next things you would do is create a control group. You can create a control group of the natal and a control group of the events, depending on which one, because you got two different things you're looking at, the events and the natal. They should correlate. And the preference of most researchers now is a shuffled control group. So you take the date, times, ways you shuffle them, and then you can look at the difference between them to help confirm that certain things occur more often. That's one of the first things I would do with your table is just to compare to a shuffled control group so we know how much they stand out. Because 40% of the time, more children are born in the morning, more are born in the spring, more are born 9 months after a holiday. There's all these cycles. Um, in Brazil, they have a lot of cesarean, births, and everybody's got the sun above the horizon because they're born during office hours. So if you see a lot of ninth and 10th house planets, that's because they were born in Brazil. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's not too exaggerated. Um, so does that make sense, Shravya? And maybe you've already started doing that?
It totally does, Santino. And the group I was looking at, the group that had significantly or tangible number of episodes were all born between 2016 through 2023 or 2024. There's a couple of people who were born in 2024 too, but that concentration of years, I don't know if it's just pure coincidence, or because we've been labeling things more these days. I
Yeah.
don't know, but I I don't know if it's biased, or but that's what I got, and then I kind of what was the right word? I wanted to say surrendered. I gave.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
let me say something about that. A lot of us, myself, are in love with the shuffled control group. It's just so fabulous because one thing it does is even, there's a lot of possible problems with the data. They label certain things more often now, whatever records might be available. So your 22 cases of epilepsy are not a good sampling of a population of people with epilepsy, and no matter how you want to define it. Um, One of the nice things about extreme case sampling is that it's going to compare that data with its own biases. It kind of takes care of almost all the bias. So you don't have a group of people that represent a queer population. That's okay. We're building the model. This is largely exploratory. No research is perfect. You can't get fanatical about these things. Nobody does in any kind of medical or especially psychological research. So the extreme case sampling will take care of most of those problems because they'll all be born in the same years and the same times of day, et cetera. And that's why it's so important, because then you'll see for a group of people who were born in the same years at the same times and same places, do they also have more quintiles than other people? And maybe your high quintile, instead of being the one, goes down to third. It'll change it a little bit and or it might change it and make it more accurate. So I would suggest that as a high priority. Now, you're still in the weeds. That's a minor point, right? How do we how do we get you really out of the weeds? Again, not everything is objective. It depends on your experience and your connection to research. I had the same experience as you. Same experience. Maybe before you were born. I started this in the 1970s. And I got access to a mainframe computer and I started researching things. And my first inclination was Vedic astrology and then some uh, theosophical stuff. And I went through all kinds of stuff. Excuse me. And um, so I was trying all these things. And, it's like a tangled string. It was just like crazy. So now what I do is over the decades, I've settled on a clear theoretical framework that I use and certain things that I have confidence in. And the rest I don't bother with. There might be 100 things for each one that I have confidence in that also work. But I no longer am open-minded in my research. I have a clear set of expectations. Um, and I wrestle with that. So I've reduced the number of variables that I look at. I'm currently doing research on when a baseball player, Barry Bonds, hit home runs, and I've got the data down to within 10 minutes of when he hit over 600 home runs. It's a fabulous database. And I'm testing my ideas to see if they work. I'm not so open-ended about it. So my way out of the weeds is choose your weapon. I'm not the greatest expert in pure data mining to sort through things, but I'm using a lot of data mining techniques. I sometimes use decision trees and random forests and all this kind of stuff. Um, real machine learning methods, but within a restricted set of tools. I'm not testing Vedic, I'm not testing zodiac signs, I don't test houses, I don't test rulerships. There's only a very narrow segment. I don't know how else to get out of the weeds. If you're being really open-ended to a lot of, and I don't look at what other people say anymore, so I wouldn't create these, things of what the consensus is. Though that's a wonderful way to proceed as well. Anybody else have any ideas? Shravya has gotten lost in so many possibilities. And her work, I think, is brilliant. Oh my God, this is fantastic work you're doing. It's just, you've got data, you've got wonderful software, you've organized it. You can't do much better, but it's the nature of the beast. I don't think the problem is Shravya. It's the problem is the beast she's trying to tame. Anybody have some better advice than I have, which is pretty simple-minded? Don't don't
I have a different
force so many
one.
things. Yeah, go ahead, Bernard.
So, if I understood you correctly, you were saying that it's very individual.
Yep.
So you're finding consistency, but you're finding consistency in the individuals. And this
That's
this is actually addressing something that I feel is a problem with how we believe that events are the same for the same people. I mean, there's a classical story about four blind men who describe an elephant, right? And they all describe it very differently. But I mean, and we tend to rationalize this story and say, "Oh, this is just a way to describe that we are very dependent of our senses," right? But if we really want to go to one of the extremes that are possible with a cosmological view like astrology, we can start questioning Sahar. We can oh sorry, I'm changing languages. We can start to question isn't if we accept something like karmic individualism, then our experiences of something like epilepsy will be individually based from birth. It's not the same. We don't need to understand it from a medical viewpoint. We can try to understand it from a greater philosophy, not necessarily karmic, but something like that. So I
Wow.
would, instead of backing up from what you found, I would try to go deeper into it.
Wow. Wow. That is brilliant. And let me just summarize in case anybody, didn't quite follow that, is that, or rephrase it in a different way. We often assume in research that we're looking for a common denominator. What do people with epilepsy have? And Bernard is saying, this is what I said about research. We bring to conscious awareness things that we instinctively sense. Maybe that assumption is wrong. Maybe the dynamic for epilepsy is highly individualized. Maybe one person didn't get enough magnesium when they were in the womb or something, I don't know. And another person had a trauma when they were 3 years old, and another person, there can be an internal consistency, but it may be that the dynamic process can be very variable, so when you're looking, you're saying, oh, most of them have quintiles. Most of them may not have anything. There may be so many different individual dynamics leading to a similar symptom. And so what Bernard is saying is dive deep into each one, and maybe you'll find some consistency. Now, this is not what we want to hear because it makes life more difficult. But here's another quote from Richard Feynman. I don't get to decide what Mother Nature is. I only get to find out what she is. And she's often more mysterious and complicated than we would like. So it would be nice if there's an epilepsy signature. But what if the personal dynamics, and he picked up on this right away that you started saying something about within an individual. I think that's totally brilliant. And I'll say one more thing about this. On the research I'm doing on sports performance, that's exactly what I'm doing. Is each person has their own reason why they're a great baseball player. And what I do, my current method is first step is I try to figure out why they're a great baseball player. There must be something in their birth chart. And then I see when that gets activated. And the problem I'm having with Barry Bonds is he does not seem to have the standard, typical baseball player configuration. So I have to look for something else. But the way that I'm digging in, exactly the way Bernard explained, is I'm finding what I think is responsible in their chart. And I have 600 episodes for him. I have 600 times he hit a home run. Um, and so I've got lots of that to see if I can. It works very well. The data works very well for Bernard's idea, which is also similar to what I've come into. Does this make sense to everyone? I think this is a brilliant discussion.
Yes, I thank you, Bernard, for that amazing feedback. So there's two layers to it, right? One, when we are looking at other samples, we are looking for patterns, right? When we are looking at epilepsy episodes, we are looking at that person's timeline, which we are diving deep, right?
Yeah.
And when you're predicting, you can really predict when that particular person is going to get an episode based on other samples, because that person has a signature, and that when that gets triggered throughout his timeline, that's when he is going to get or more likely to get an episode. So there's two layers to this one. One is the timeline data when each person has had an episode. And some people can have Mars and Uranus triggers. Some people can have Jupiter and Mercury triggers. And like you were discussing before, I'm not an pro astrologer, but from my understanding, Mercury can sometimes be related to the neurological things too. I totally agree with Bernard. Sometimes all we can do is surrender and just look at our own life and timeline instead of comparing with the other samples. And that's where I was getting deep into the weeds. But I just wanted to share if my words makes anybody's research easier, I'm happy to share. So you can just give your sample set and get the results out and save some time and yeah.
Can I share one more reflection?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that we're dealing with quintiles, because I think quintiles are one of the aspects that are present throughout several different traditions, not only Jyotish, but also it's been attended to in Western astrology, also Mayan astrology. It's of importance because of the centrality of Venus. But as a mathematician, I would add a technical detail to this, and that is that our way of viewing numbers is one of the categories that are perhaps deceptive. And if we're going to look at, for example, the number 5, there are numbers that carry five-ishness more strongly than 5. So my more philosophical but detailed concern would be that don't stop at look. I don't know how high you're going in the harmonics, but 25 is more 5-ish than 5 is, for example. So don't stop too early.
That is amazing. Thank you.
That is amazing. That's wonderful. And what Bernard is pointing out here is, sometimes the limitations of our thinking are we can be very close to a discovery, and there could be one little thing that in retrospect can seem obvious that we miss. And it may be that limiting yourself to 5 if you start looking at 5, 10, 15, and especially 25, you might find, oh my God, not only do they have 5, they also have 25, and then you start developing, so like a consistent idea that's, richer and doesn't seem as random. So yeah, that's brilliant. I want
So,
to mention another,
quick question here.
yeah, go ahead.
For computational purposes, at least for something to get started with, how high should I go? For computational purposes and also for reasonable, what is a reasonable range to get started? For now, I'm just doing 12 because computationally for now, that's where
Yeah.
I'm starting because I'm
What
using.
what a lot of people do, including myself, when they get into these higher numbers, is they're only using the denominator and not the numerator. So a lot of times we're grouping 1/25ths, 3/25ths, 7/25ths with the assumption that they're all very similar. Because with 22 people, you don't have enough data to get down to individual 25th aspects. Even when I'm doing many hundreds, I use this, again, assumption or theoretical, theory that there's going to be something similar about all of them. So you can just do a 25th harmonic chart. You multiply everything by 25, do modulus 360, ultra fast for the computer, and then just look for conjunctions, within the orb in the harmonic chart is usually sounds large because if you're doing a 16th harmonic chart and you use a 16-degree orb, that's actually only a 1-degree orb in the natal chart. So the orbs can sound large because everything's blown up by the number of the harmonic. So, for example, I use a 16-degree orb. Some people use 10 or 12, but it's usually something in that range. So one way computationally to deal with it is not, number one, don't use individual aspects, just use the 25th harmonic and assume the numerator doesn't matter very much. And then after you do that calculation, you just look for conjunctions. So it's extremely fast and, there's really no limit. So on a practical level, given the amount of data, we have to deal with the data, we have to deal with some ways of handling it. But again, the assumption that anything with a 25th, especially if it does not reduce down, and sometimes this could slow down your process and require more coding, we want to remove it if it's 5/25ths, because then it's actually a 1/5. So whether you remove things that reduce down or not, is up to you. And I usually do it both ways. But that's computationally how you could approach it. If Bernard or anybody else has any other ideas on how she would dive into these higher numbers, go ahead and share it. But that's what I do.
There are practical limitations, of course, in that as you get into the higher numbers, your windows of occurrence become smaller. So if you're up at the 25th harmonic, you're probably going to need to be able to decide when the epilepsy occurred with a window of a half hour or something like that. And the higher you go, the narrower that's going to get. So there we get into some real empirical limitations.
Absolutely. So what happens is if you're doing the 25th harmonic, everything's moving 25 times faster. So how fast is the sun going every day in the natal chart, 1 degree a day on average, something like that? How fast is it moving in the 25th harmonic? 25 degrees a day. It's moving twice as fast as the moon. So, what Bernard is saying is that if you have an episode and you only have the date, for example, or you only know within 5 hours, you cannot use inner planets in the 25th harmonic. So there's a limitation. This is why I'm in heaven over this baseball batting performance. With the help of ChatGPT and a lot of persistence, I was able to get the time within 10 to 15 minutes of all these home runs he hit, which means I can use the higher harmonics which I think are important. So yeah, that's, I'm just repeating what he said in maybe in a more verbose way. But that's an issue. And, sometimes we start research and we hit brick walls because of limitations of the data or whatever. Our theory may push us outside the boundaries of what we do. So that's that's the real struggle of real research. And we have few people to commiserate with because they don't, appreciate what an obstacle course this is. But you have, I always say the researcher decides. You lead the dance. You decide whether, you think these higher vibrations or harmonics, Bernard's suggestion, my suggestion, we have some similar thinking, is interesting. Other astrologers say, no, that that's not the way to go. Every astrologer has their own intuition and sensitivity as to what to look for.
Got it. Thank you both. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. This was wonderful conversation, Shravya. The work you're doing, wow. I can't wait to tell the board we need to put this up there. And, the data I assume can be made available anonymously or something. To have the code, the data, 22 people, the episodes, and especially in a table that says how accurate the times were. And we can build on it. This is the kind of community we want. Because right now, each of us is in our own little eccentric world with nobody to correspond with or talk to. So this is exciting. I'm really impressed with the groundbreaking you've done. Breaking the ground is hard, and you've done it. So really wonderful.
I tried.
Santino,
Tom,
may
yeah,
we go back to Steffi Graaf?
yeah. Let's look at Steffi. There she is,
Yeah.
and let's go back to normal kind of aspects. Go ahead.
Yeah, do you have an idea why, what the triple Gemini really means if we look at from a VA point of view?
Right. Okay. So, I've made over 800 YouTube videos, and I have a video on the results of each zodiac sign. You can watch those. But what I concluded about the zodiac signs is that zodiac signs do not tell us what a person does, and aspects can tell you much more, or midpoints. Planetary configurations are actually the energy flow and what people tend to do. And the signs are more like a coloring. So it's more like the aspects will tell you the storyline of what's happening. And then the signs tell you whether the person's wearing a red dress or a blue dress. It's kind of nice to know, but if you start with signs, you're completely lost. So the idea that Gemini is talkative and so on is not true, is my conclusion from the VA standpoint and our research. And also, this gets to a question I saw in the chat. In VA, we do not look at astrology as correlations of behavior or personality with planets. We look at them as forces. They're like radio signals, and your mind is a radio receiver. And you have so many signals coming in that you can't respond to all of them. So you pick some out and you manage. What Gemini does, to answer your question, Gemini is curiosity. That's all it is. It's not talkativeness. All it is it's just, oh, the leaves turned red and yellow. Oh my God. Like, oh my God, this white stuff's falling out of the sky. They call it snow in English. It's like, it's just, wow, I have 5 fingers. Oh my God. It's just a fascination with what is right in front of you. It doesn't care about philosophy, like, why am I here? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's curious about that too, but not any more than the fact you have 5 fingers. So Gemini is curiosity, which means that Steffi has a lot of curiosity and childlike curiosity and fun. That's all that Gemini is. Everything gives one quality. So her foundation, she's wealthy. She's married to Andre Agassi, who's also one of the greatest tennis players. And, so they live in a nice place in Germany, etc. And she has a foundation because she has a good heart, and her husband does. So what is her foundation? This is as of several years ago. I don't know what's happened recently. Her foundation is she goes to places where children are poor and they don't play. They don't have toys. They don't have lots of games. Of course, they can draw lines in the sand and, jump around a little bit. But she feels like the heaviness of their environment is squeezing the curiosity right out of them, the playfulness. They don't laugh. They don't have a lot of gadgets to play with. So she goes into the middle of these poor places and she plays with them and she brings them fun, curious things. She is living the Gemini life.
Correct.
She doesn't have to be talkative, and she's like not talkative at all, you know. Um, So she embodies the inherent principle. When you look at the zodiac signs as behavior, as personality, it very often does not work. And I can go through all 12 zodiac signs, show you the people who are the extremes and how their life work, their attunement is about that energy and often does not have any of the personality characteristics. Sometimes it does. More often than not, it does very slightly. The astrology works very slightly, but the principle, the core meaning of it, it's always there. I mean, it's always there. And especially for highly successful people, highly productive people, because if you're highly productive, it means that this energy, that's these signals that are coming into your radio are getting picked up and getting expressed.
Mm.
So you'll be highly productive when you resemble what the information system is trying to produce through you. And so for highly productive people, they tend to, it tends to be fairly clear that they are expressing those qualities. So that's what the Gemini is. She
Mm.
is, she thinks that curiosity and being, and it is associated with the child in all of us. And for a child not to laugh and giggle and play and put on mommy's clothes and make believe she's grandma or whatever, we got problems. And that's what Steffi recognizes.
Furthermore, if you analyze it through a VA lens and looking at let's say her natal chart as compared to higher vibes, you will see that her natal chart is not that strong, so higher vibes are more important, and the strongest vibe are sevens and even seven squared. So the highest vibe for her is a multiple of 139, and 139 is sevens. It's a high vibe of 139. So that means that 7 is of course very introvert type of energy. So the whole her big vibes are sevens. So that explains also that she is not very outgoing in terms of being talkative like a Gemini. She possibly pays a lot of time to study and to fulfill her curiosity. And also it is in the 12th house, so maybe it's also directed to spirituality and good doing. So that will, if you use VA, you see that the natal chart cannot be interpreted in a very classical way, because you have to interpret the higher vibes, which are more important for the whole expression of what she has in her chart.
Exactly, 100%. So Tan is speaking the VA language right now. He uses, different astrological systems, but 100%, that's exactly how we understand it in VA, is that here's the 7 times 3 vibration, 21. Sports that involve smoothness, elegance, flow, like golf, tennis, the people usually have very strong 21 or 21 times 3, 63 vibe. Strong means you see huge aspect patterns. She has, and again, we allow a large orb up to 10 to 12 degrees is strong, goes out to 16 degrees. She has Saturn and Pluto conjunct with a 1.5 degree orb. Saturn and Pluto is the most severe combination of planets. They're conjunct in 21, very tightly square, Jupiter, Neptune, the moon, and Mars is also involved. Huge pattern. And then we have in higher vibrations these things showing us other planets. If I see this chart and I don't know anything about the person, I'm going to say, oh, this person can train. And Steffi was famous for this. They talk about when she would fly in for a big match and people were taking pictures and asking for signatures, she would get off the plane, sign something, some scribble with one hand, not say a word, go to the practice court. And they said within 15 minutes, she was on the practice court over and over and over again. Her discipline, her focus was fantastic, very quiet, very humble, and just at it all the time. So that's going to dominate. And then the color, it's just the coloring. It's not describing the basic force. It's something, yeah. So that's how I make sense of it. A Vedic astrologer would make sense of it by saying, well, it's not in Gemini, it's in Taurus, which also fits very, very well. So you come up with a set of rules that will work consistently. But that's the point of view from the theoretical framework that I use.
The reason I bring this up is a connection with the test person Joyce of the One Sky, because under One Sky, 12 famous astrologers try to interpret her her birth chart without any knowledge, and if you look at from a VA with much more higher harmonics involved in a person, you will definitely see that person from according to VA is driven by very high vibes, which are not easily seen in the natal. They are not easily seen. And that is the same with Steffi Graf. If you interpret her natal chart from a more conventional way, not realizing that there are hidden parts in the natal chart that are hidden and are not easily seen until you figure them out. And then you see that are the big drives in a personality. And we see that over and over for very well-known people. You have brought that up many, many times to others.
Yeah, let me share what Tan is referring to. This book, Under One Sky, is a fabulous book, published a long time ago. Stephen Forrest published this book. And what he did is he took the birth date and time and place of a person, just that data, and he gave it to some extremely well-known astrologers at the time. And you'll recognize some of these names, and said, interpret it. And so you have this book that's just a series of interpretations of her chart, and then he tells you what she's really like. I thought that one of the most accurate ones was Hadley Fitzgerald. I don't know what you thought, but of the ones that are here, when I got the book, I wrote down the birth information, which was in the preface, and I didn't read any of it. So I played the game as well. It's a fun thing to do. And I analyzed it using the vibrational astrology. This was at least 10 years ago. Vibrational astrology has improved a lot since then.
May I suggest in the chat I gave the birth time. It's January 16, 1943 4:18 p.m. prior Oklahoma. If you put that in your program, and then you will see that C is dominated by 49, so 7 squared, and especially 98 and are top vibes. So, and you will see that there's an extreme stellium of planets, six of them, including the node, coming together in the fifth house. And if you read her biography, then you immediately understand that is what is driving her. No one of the other 12 astrologers were able to detect that depth of what is driving her, but VA is able to show more of it. So if yes, that is her 1943. If you go to yes, especially 98 is extreme.
Whoa. Wow. Yeah.
And this is in her fifth, that stellium is in her fifth natal house. So that makes her very, let's say, trying to very focused on self-development. And if you read her biography, she is.
This stellium is unbelievably strong. She has Sun, Uranus, Neptune, Mars, and Venus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets within 4 degrees.
Yes,
A
extreme.
lot of people don't have this in any vibration, this strong. And in vibrational astrology, and then Jupiter squares it, Moon's opposition. So that adds to it. This is incredibly strong, and this would be the dominating characteristic of her. When I interpreted her chart, I don't remember what I looked at, probably this. I wrote down my interpretation. I've long since lost it. I probably should have kept it. One of my moves, I lost a lot of my stuff or misplaced it. But I had written down my interpretation, and honestly, it was mind-bogglingly accurate. And I think more accurate than any in the book.
Yeah.
So that's a fun exercise and helps, part of an evidence-based practice is that the ideas that you derive from research must work in practice.
Correct.
There's 2 sides to it. You have the people in the quote laboratory, the nerds crunching numbers, and then you have the practitioners. The practitioners use what the nerds just find out, and then if it does not work or there's problems with it, the nerds do not win. They have to confirm each other. And so this is part of an evidence-based practice. Also, we're running out of time, and I want Angela to share some things with you before we end, but go ahead.
If you show her natal again, then you see that especially Mercury very close to Venus. So she studied English literature and could write excellently, as well as a teacher, professor.
Yeah.
But you see there, you don't see quite clearly the spiritual side, and she has developed her spiritual side and going into all kinds of metaphysics all over the world, and that is quite visible if you go to the higher vibes and looking for big conjunctions like here. You see Uranus and Neptune are in the same degree.
If you have Mars, Uranus, Neptune conjunct within 1 degree with the 4th planet, the Sun, this aspiration for vision, magic is, and it's going to be 98, which is going to be deep, thoughtful, not flamboyant, that's what it means. So yeah. Well, anyway, I'm too, go ahead.
My suggestion would be because the Under One Sky is a very famous and very good book, and it highlights many other disciplines. And if you want to introduce VA to other people to show what can be done with VA, then this is a very excellent case.
Yeah.
Just show what can be done, and it's very convincing.
Yeah. Okay, very good. I don't like to promote my own approach so much, but Ton did, and so that's good. All right. I think we've covered most of the really important stuff. What a fantastic meeting. I want to thank all of you. Also, um, I'm going to give Angela um, the ability to share a screen in case she wants to. I want to close our meeting here with maybe 15 minutes or whatever it takes for Angela to share the GoKollab site. This is one of the ways that we are going to um, increase our collaboration. Fabulous collaboration this morning. We learned from so many of you here. Um, and this is another way for us to share ideas. So go ahead, Angela, tell us about,
Yeah. Can you
yeah.
guys see my screen okay?
Yeah, I'm just seeing me. There we go. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm using the web version of Zoom today. All right. So we had all sort of talked about having more ways to collaborate and share research with each other. Also, we needed a forum that was posted a calendar of events and things like that. So we decided to use the GoKollab platform. So you all should have received, and some of you have joined already, but you all should have received an email yesterday. And then I think there was also a link earlier today that gave you access to get into this group. You do have to go through a I'm not a robot kind of thing and then get approval. But I just wanted to walk you through it so you know how to use it. This is kind of what you'll see when you log in. And on the right here, this just talks about Cosmobiology Institute. You can link to the conference and link to our website. When you first log in, it asks you to set up a bio. So I am going to show you what that looks like. And you can put as little or as much information as you want in there. So just have your basic details. You can enter a 200-word bio about yourself. This helps other people kind of see who you are and what you're working on. You enter your location and time zone. You can also put in your different social media accounts and show whether it's visible or not. So if you want to link your LinkedIn page, your YouTube, or anything like that, this will give people access to be able to take a look there. Also, any other groups that you might belong to on GoKollab, you can find those in there as well. So that is settings. So when you first log in, you'll be asked to just set that up. All you really have to do is put in your name and email address and then answer a quick question, and then we'll approve you to come in. So the way that this works is on the left, you have all of these, you can consider them kind of folders or posting opportunities. So we have a general discussions tab. You can just type in, if you're just bouncing an idea off of somebody, feel free to use this. Research discussions, if you have some questions about maybe some research that you're working on, or maybe you could use somebody's help, this is a good area for you to post there. And then, we've been talking about getting more organized in our research meetings. So this gives you the opportunity to post. This is where you're going to post your research meeting ideas. Oh, sorry, it's this one, research meeting ideas. So this is where you're going to post your research meeting ideas. If you have ideas for the group, go ahead and post them here. You're welcome to still email them, but this gives people instant access to take a look at everybody's sort of ideas and thoughts, and we'll respond here on this page. So I wanted to show you too. So this is where we're going to start posting the research meeting agenda every week. So you have access through a Google Sheet. And if you haven't worked in Google Docs before, it's actually a pretty good program. I'm not a huge fan of Google myself, but I've learned to adapt to this because this is what a lot of people are using. So for the meeting today, we went ahead and posted the agenda as a Google Sheet, and this is what we're going to be doing so that It's real easy. You can't edit on this page itself, but all you have to do is go to File and Download. And you can download in any kind of format you want, Microsoft Word, PDF, etc. That gives you the opportunity to maybe take notes during the meeting, or you can write some stuff down related to the topics. It's a really kind of a good thing. And then it'll just kind of live in that area so that if you want to refer back to it at any time, several months later or whatever, you can go back into these topics. Also, here is an events calendar. This is where you're going to have access to all of the research meetings and conferences and different things that we're hosting. I will remind you that we're not having a research meeting next month in April because of the conference. So just keep that in mind. But they're all here and it posts in your time zone. So I know that that's really helpful when we send out the newsletters and stuff. Obviously, it's really difficult for us to like capture everybody's time zone. And I know that's hard doing math with daylight savings and all of that. So this gives you the information in the time zone that you are working and living in. It also will send you reminders about the meetings and stuff and so on there. So it's very simple to use. It's pretty organized. As we get more information and more things sort of happening, we'll get them posted here. But I think it's going to be a good opportunity for you guys to share what you're working on with your colleagues and the people here in the research meetings and so forth. I do believe that I know that there's ways to send messages to people too, one-on-one. So if you wanted to send Starlene a message or myself or somebody else in the group, you can do that. So that is kind of where we're headed as far as the collaboration goes. If you guys have any questions, feel free to send me an email. You can send an email to info@cosmobiologyinstitute.org. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but I hope you guys can all join and we can have a good place to share ideas.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wonderful.
And
Any
somebody who has
questions?
not joined yet is Mr. Santino. So hopefully he will be joining soon.
I will join shortly after this meeting. Any questions, thoughts for Angela? This is exciting. This is one way that we're going to be able to collaborate and stay in touch and learn from each other. Are we all good?
It's pretty user friendly, but if you have any questions, just let me know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we'll have more and more information as we collect.
I think it's so exciting because we have so many creative, brilliant people already here. And just to be able to go there and what's up with Shravya's research? Does she have anything to say? And I could just go there and,
Yep.
and check it out. Or, we can message people right there. And I guess we can find their email address as well.
Yeah, as long as you put your email address in the bio. And I did want to mention, we do have like kind of group rules set up talking about confidentiality and sort of being kind and all of those things. So you can check those out. I'm sure we won't have any issues whatsoever, but it's always good to have some guidelines.
Yeah. Yeah. Angela's a force of nature for Cosmobiology Institute. She's doing all this. She's also organizing the conference. Angela, maybe you can show the conference website because the conference is coming
Sure.
up very soon. And meeting in person is just a really special thing. A lot of us here are in Europe and not likely to be hopping on a plane, but
Yeah, so we're excited about the conference coming up next month. And if you can't make it this time, I think we're going to try to do this every 2 years. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see how this goes. But that kind of feels like the right time period. So that'll give everybody a chance to get their research in and start working on the next one. But we have kind of definitely a packed agenda for the conference. We're going to have a really good opening session keynote where Santina is going to talk about how couples kind of play out in evidence-based research and how it's not exactly what everybody thinks it is. So we are kind of jumping in on the somewhat, I don't know if it's controversial, but we're not afraid to make a statement based on our research. So he's going to lead us in that direction. We have pre-conference workshops. Christopher Benton, who you guys probably know, I know he's been in a lot of these research meetings. He's going to be educating, basically it's an introductory session for research terminology for astrologers or anybody who isn't sort of up on all of the terminology and stuff that we work in that area. Then we have lots of sessions, psychology, talking about the zodiac again in different ways. Vincent's going to talk about the zodiac in the Southern Hemisphere and how that might play out differently. We have a great recent addition to the schedule, Amanda Selva. She's on the board of NCGR, but she has done, and she actually wrote an article recently in Correlation magazine. So she's going to be talking about midpoint patterns in very tragic circumstances like school shootings. We're really lucky to have her and grateful that she's going to be able to join us. Darlene's going to talk about fixed stars, cardiac disease. That's Christopher Benton, and basically the health side of what we're doing. And Santina is going to talk about the planetary patterns and peak athletic performance. So looking forward to that. I know you've been working pretty hard on that recently in the past few months. So we've just got a lot of different things. If you can't make it, we look forward to the next time that we can all get together. But we are planning on having a newsletter come out and some way to get all of this information out to you all at the end of it. So so we're excited. If you can make it, but maybe you don't have money for the registration, but you can cover your travel expenses, let me know, because we definitely need some people to help out in different ways. And I'm willing to throw in a registration if you can make it out there for that. So just email me. But
Yeah, wonderful. We also have we'll have some videos. Bernard will be presenting information, during breaks.
yes,
And if we are able to have another conference, if we can pay the bills and get enough interest, say in 2 years, what we're looking forward to is expanding the number of people contributing. Myself and a few other people are helping start this up. But over time, you can see like the wonderful work Sravya is doing and other people. Um, yeah, we'll have more and more different people contributing as the community grows.
May I ask a question about availability of recordings afterwards?
so we are not planning on recording this year. However, we are probably going to be doing that just for the sake of keeping things posterity's sake, or however you want to word it. Mostly that has to do with the fact that it takes a good amount of money to be able to do it the right way and be able to send out recordings and videos and stuff like that. So I am not 100% off. That's not off the table for me, because I do have some resources to be able to make some of that happen. So I'm going to try to get as much recorded as I can, but
Yeah.
we can't promise anything because I don't know the quality that it's going to be.
Yeah, well,
Does that
I
make
think
sense? I know
the quality is less important than sharing the information afterwards.
yeah,
So it would
yeah,
be so nice if those could be made in one way or the other, and can be shared later on in one way or the other. I
yeah,
speak for many Dutch astrologers who are very interested but will not make the journey to the
sure.
United States.
Well,
including
we are
myself.
definitely hoping to find a way to do that. So I
Yeah,
can't promise anything, which is why I can't talk about it, but I want to be able to.
we in the Netherlands, we are discussing it pretty soon with all astrologers in the Netherlands together. One thing that can be done is if there are so interesting breakthrough conferences that the recordings can be shown to the local people, uh, also online, and discuss it with some of the members of that conference, just to share the amount of
Sure.
information, because that will be helpful. And we even plan in the Netherlands to have a meeting next year about research. And then the research meetings like these, they are, yeah, they give a breakthrough. It would be so nice that we can share it and discuss it, what those findings are in one way or the other. So,
Yes, agreed. I agree with you.
and
So
so
I'm going to try my hardest. Say
yeah,
that.
but
But
quality is
I don't want to put out false hope or sell anything to
Yeah,
anybody ahead of time or anything like that.
yeah,
So we're
we're
going to
very
try our best to get it
we're
done.
very careful to be very conservative in what we state, the Cosmology Institute will do. So we're
yeah,
not officially going to have recordings of any quality, but realistically, we expect something will happen. We just don't want to
no,
promise, and we don't want to promise how that will happen. Um, it's just a handful of people trying to do a lot of stuff, and
yeah,
uh, yeah, but we're 100% in agreement with you. We
yeah,
need to make this available. And that's why Angela is willing to extend, some free registrations and stuff for people to help. We need more hands
yeah.
helping, developing the website, all these new tools we're developing. And yeah, so we're just getting started.
Yeah, yeah, but many Dutch astrologers are really interested, but they are not willing to travel in the present world situation.
Oh yeah,
Oh, sure.
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we'll hopefully in the next few years things will get better and we can all meet together in a
Yeah,
bigger space and a bigger environment.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But thank you,
Okay.
Ton, for sharing that because
And
it is
Ton, I believe
extremely
I sent
important.
you, actually, I know I sent you an email a month or so ago. I don't know if you got it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I've got it, and I've tried to do some research. I work also with
okay.
Nelson using his program doing the research because
Okay.
Frequency Finder 3 is not available yet for us. But it's too soon to share what we
Sure.
have, what we can show. I'm studying the Huber patterns and whether they are whether the patterns, the interpretation the Hubers give are also possible for harmonics.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
it's a very systematic way we do research, but it's too soon to
Okay.
share it. I will share it in smaller meetings whenever possible,
Perfect.
but not in a big conference that requires another level of quality, and we have not reached that yet.
Okay. Well, we look forward to seeing it when you get it done. Make sure you let
Yeah,
us know and then we'll give you a
yeah.
platform
Yeah,
to share it.
we have a big meeting next month with all astrologers in the Netherlands, the main two professional astrologer and our own, which is a research. Santino gave a presentation in December together with me, and we are working on yeah, leveling up the research efforts in the Netherlands and work together internationally and share information. So that is the direction we are heading, and we are talking about a conference next year completely dedicated to doing research and research
Wow.
results all over the world to share what is happening in the world. And that's what was the background of my
Yeah,
request.
please.
But
The
let's have
Dutch group is evolving and we're evolving at Cosmology Institute. We're going to become sister organizations.
yeah,
They're doing wonderful stuff, and a lot of things will be done, emphasizing local connections because
yeah,
people can't get up and fly halfway around
yeah,
the world all the time. So very exciting what's happening in the Netherlands, and Ton is building that bridge with Cosmobiology Institute. Very exciting. So, I think we should have at least one person who's a representative of Cosmobiology Institute there at that conference. And, as we build these bridges and communication, and hopefully we can record, and those will be, this conference, and make those available. So very exciting. The global community is little by little
Growing.
developing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, are we good? Any last statements? We're 15 minutes over, which is fine. Are we all good? This was a great meeting. I really appreciate all of you. Everybody good? Okay, I think so.
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody. Have a great
thank
week.
you.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest
Thank
of your
you.
day or evening. Okay, bye.
Bye.